tap under a door handles the hydrogen. Fresh air handles the hydrogen. It is not complicated. What can you run on a bank of 4 cells at 12 volts? Every light in your house, your refrigerator through the night, your well pump in short cycles, your modem, your router, your phones, a chest freezer, not simultaneously, but in rotation, the way every American household managed power before the Rural Electrification Act of 1936 convinced the country that dependency on a central grid was the only respectable way to live. Raw materials. Nickel sheet, 28 gauge, runs approximately $3 per square foot from any metals supply house. Iron sheet at the same gauge runs about $1.50. Potassium hydroxide flakes, sold as food-grade lye at any soap-making supply website, run about $15 for 5 pounds, enough to fill 10 cells. Distilled water, $3 a gallon from your grocery store. A wide-mouth glass jar with a rubber stopper, free if you have been eating pickles. Total cost per cell, built from scratch, under $5. Under, the electrolyte wants to be flushed and refreshed every 10 to 15 years, which costs roughly $4 per pound of potassium hydroxide, and a single cell takes about 2 pounds. Do that math across 40 years, and you're spending less than $1 per year per cell on maintenance. $1 per year. Against the average American electric bill of $140 per month, against the lithium pack in your phone that will be dead before its 4th birthday. Now, here is what the textbooks did not print. Here is what I learned not from a university paper, not from a patent filing, but from page 11 of a handwritten notebook kept in the back room of a harness shop in Strasburg, Pennsylvania, started in 1947 by a man named Jacob Stoltzfus and passed down to his grandson, who let me read it in 2023. The standard Edison cell has one vulnerability. Over decades of cycling, the iron plate slowly develops a thin layer of insoluble iron compounds on its surface. The cell continues to work, but it loses roughly 10% of its capacity across every 20 years of use. Edison knew about this. He mentioned it in passing in his 1907 lab notebooks. He was not particularly troubled by it because 10% every 20 years across a battery that lasts a century was, from his perspective, acceptable performance. It was still better than anything else on the market by orders of magnitude. But Amos Fisher, a blacksmith working in a barn outside Strasbourg in 1949, was not interested in acceptable. He was interested in permanent. Fisher had been maintaining surplus railroad cells for his neighbors for years. He was tired of seeing them lose that 10%. He found an old chemistry journal at an estate auction, the kind of auction where dead men's bookshelves get sold off by the box, and he read about the use of lithium salts in industrial alkaline solutions. He decided to try adding a small amount of lithium hydroxide to the potassium hydroxide electrolyte in one of his cells. Not lithium ion, not a lithium battery, just a pinch of lithium hydroxide salt, roughly 50 grams per liter of electrolyte solution. He marked that cell with a notch filed into the steel casing. He kept notes on it for the next several years. The iron plate did not form the insulating layer. Capacity held. He told his neighbors. They tried it. Capacity held for them too. And so a community of people who are constitutionally opposed to drawing attention to themselves quietly improved upon one of the greatest engineering achievements of the 20th century and said nothing to anyone outside their county. That notched cell was still in service when I read the notebook in 2023. 73 years on the original plates, the original electrolyte, with no measurable loss of capacity. Lithium hydroxide is sold by every pottery and ceramic supply company in the country. Roughly $40 per pound. 1 pound treats 50 cells. You add it once when you fill the cell for the first time. You never add it again. That is the complete secret that an Amish blacksmith discovered in a barn while the battery industry was busy designing products that would fail on schedule. Edison knew about lithium salts and moved on. Amos Fisher knew about lithium salts and stayed, and 74 years later his barn still has the lights on. I want to tell you what brought me to this. In February of 2019, an ice storm moved through southern Ohio and the power went out for 9 days. 9 days in the coldest part of winter. I lost everything in my freezer. My wife and I slept next to a kerosene heater in the living room and rationed our hot water and called the electric company every morning to hear a recording tell us restoration was ongoing. On the 3rd day, an Amish neighbor walked across the field with warm bread, just because that is what neighbors do, and offered his shower, his kitchen, his lights. His refrigerator was running, his water pump was working. He had no generator, no fuel tank, no extension cord running to anywhere. Just a row of those small steel cans on a basement shelf, wired to a little windmill on the roof, doing quietly and permanently what they had been doing since before I was born. I stood in his basement for a long time without saying anything, and then I started reading. I drove to Lancaster County. I drove to Holmes County. I sat in workshops with patient men who answered every question I had, and the more I learned, the more I felt something tightening in my chest. Not anger at the Amish. They were not hiding anything from anyone. Anger at the world I had been sold as the only possible world. The world where you write a check every month to a company for the privilege of having electricity in your own home, and you accept that arrangement as gravity, as weather, as something that cannot be otherwise. It can be otherwise. It has always been able to be otherwise. The knowledge was buried because it was worth more to certain people buried than free. And now you have it. You start small. You build one cell or you buy one. You wire it to a single panel. You watch it work. And somewhere in that moment, something shifts in you, something that an awful lot of Americans have not felt in a long time. The specific, quiet feeling of not needing permission. Real independence. The kind that does not arrive in an envelope with a due date printed on it. That is what this is about. Now I want to hear from you. Down in the comments, tell me this. What is the one thing in your family, a tool, a machine, a piece of equipment, something built before the world decided that things should be designed to fail, that has outlasted 3 generations and is still working today? Tell me what it is. Tell me whether you still have it. Because those stories are the whole point of building a community like this one, and I read every single one. And if what you heard today felt like something being returned to you that should never have been taken in the first place, subscribe to this channel. We are not collecting viewers here. We are slowly reassembling the knowledge that was quietly walked out the back door of American life by industries that needed you to stay dependent. Every week, I pull another piece of it back into the light.